Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm reading today for Aries and I'm reading ahead for, let's say, the first few months of 2024. Happy New Year. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of get straight into it. So I've had this feeling for you, Aries, and sometimes when I'm in between readings for a while, I find that I start to kind of sync up with the sign that I'm reading for or for whichever message wants to come through. So I've had this feeling for you, Aries, kind of consistently over the past couple of weeks that you are perhaps getting into some sort of group of like-minded people. So it's coming through for me, and I'm going to say that the reading is kind of heavily themed around this, and it might just be because I'm really into it at the moment, but the idea of kind of like role-playing games, for example, like Dungeons and Dragons, or like is like Warhammer, like a tabletop game, kind of like these kind of like, it's coming through for you. It doesn't have to be exactly those things, Aries. It's coming through for you like you could have some kind of quirky interest. It might not be too mainstream. I think things like D&D are coming a bit more mainstream because there's stuff like, you know, like the kids playing it in Stranger Things and stuff like that. So there's a bit of a resurgence of it. But I know that when I was growing up, I didn't know anyone. Like, I think maybe like one of my dad's friends might have played something like D&D, but it wasn't something that I had access to, right? It wasn't like I could join a D&D group. It wasn't something that was available to me. And so I was kind of a bit of a theatre nerd. I was kind of like, I dabbled in that kind of like theatre thing for a while, but yeah, it has that feeling of like maybe you've got some kind of interest, maybe you're just really into things like Lord of the Rings, or and it doesn't even have to be fantasy. It's like you could be into kind of like vintage cars, or I don't know, stamp collecting, or I'm like, I don't know what the quirk is, right? I don't know what the thing is, but it's like some specific interest that you've had, maybe something that you've already always wanted to get into, or something that you used to do that you want to get back into, some kind of hobby. And this idea of kind of like finding a group, or is coming through for you a little bit like invite only. So it could be some kind of Discord group, and you know, a friend of a friend is kind of inviting you into it because they're looking for more people, something like that. So it feels like you're getting into some kind of closed group, but it feels a little bit like you have forward knowledge of this, or you have like a premonition of this, or you know, maybe something like the timing is just right, you know, like your guides, the universe is just lining things up in such a way that, you know, this thing gets revived for you, and it just turns out at the same time that this group is also looking for somebody with your kind of interests and, you know, your kind of background and characteristics. So yeah, what's interesting is the song that came through for you was Love Shack by B-52s. Now, you know that Love Shack at the Love Shack, that song. So it doesn't have to necessarily be that you're going to kind of like an O-R-G-Y, right? I don't know why that was making me think of the word ogre as well, like an ogre, O-R-G-Y. It doesn't have to be anything like that, right? But it kind of has that feeling of, you know, a funky little shack, you know, like, so it could be there's a certain place, you know, maybe it's a little bit out of the way. You know, it could even be my eldest is interested in, they've seen these kind of parties that are kind of like cosplay parties, and they're always set in like castles and things. So it could be something like that where it's kind of like, I really want to go to that castle or that manor house, you know, it's kind of like set back a bit. It's a little bit out of the way, you know, something like that. So there's this feeling of like maybe excitement but also intimidation. So I don't know, maybe some of you have been to this place before. Maybe it's a place that moves. So yeah, you've got that interesting mix of excitement because it feels like happiness, it feels like good vibes, but at the same time you're kind of nervous because you don't quite know what to expect, or because something's a bit different. Maybe there's like different people. It's like, you know, like the group is the same theme, but it's like a different group with different people. So something like that. But I did have this feeling, and again, this is the initial thing that came through for you, and it's remained consistent, that there could be somebody in this group that you are attracted to, or somebody in this group who is attracted to you. I don't know if it's mutual. I don't know if it's like reciprocated, but it has this feeling of, especially if it's role play, you know, sort of you and this character having a romance as part of the role play. So maybe it's kind of like, you know, you're an actor on stage and you're playing Romeo and Juliet, you know, that's that kind of thing. But you feel like there's something more there, or you feel like this person feels, you know, that they are actually into you, but you kind of like, is it acting, is it imagination, or is there actually something there? So again, this is the first part, let's say, of 2024. This could be something that hasn't happened yet, but you're going to find is going to start playing out for you in the first couple of months. So again, just kind of refer back to this reading and check it out. You did get 1111. It was 1111 when I kind of looked at my phone to check something or write something down during this reading. So yeah, that's a good sign. It does feel a little bit like things coming into alignment for you at the first part of the year. Interestingly enough, as well as having kind of like this idea of like love shack and, you know, this funky little place where people can get together, you also had the card Feast of Plenty fell out. So the Feast of Plenty, it has the feeling of like a banquet or a buffet. So maybe that could be something. Also bloom, I don't know if the word bloom or something about flowers blooming, maybe it could be something to do with spring. It could be something for you. Yeah, I'm just checking my notes. Need to know, invite only, role playing D&D, something that's a bit fringe. And then bang on the door was kind of highlighted to me from that song. So, you know, it might be that there's a special knock to get in, or, you know, during this role play, you could have to, you know, learn the secret password to get through the door. It could be that this is all, it could be that everything in this reading is role play, or everything in this reading is fantasy. I find, again, I feel like I'm kind of in alignment with you, because what I've been feeling is coming out in your reading, and I don't have Aries in my chart. So I feel like what has been coming through for me is also is part of the message for you, if that makes sense. Like sometimes my guides get me to have a certain experience so that I can understand it, so that I can pass the message on. And that's kind of the message in itself. You have this feeling of so, like I say, I kind of played D&D for the first time on New Year's Eve, and then I kind of ended up, because I don't fully understand the rules and kind of how to play exactly, right? So I kind of ended up watching things like Dimension 20 and Critical Role, and then I got stomach flu, so I had kind of like a day and a half in bed, and I've just been kind of watching these people, these very, very funny people playing these role-playing games, right? So um and then it kind of feels like this is part of the reading. So it has this feeling of maybe preparing to join a group, or again, it's kind of like almost like seeing the signs that this is the right path for you. This feels like the right path to go down because it's going to lead you to a group, something like that. But I've had this weird sensation of multiple times of, because I'm explaining this so badly. So I am a creative person, you know, I am into kind of like tarot cards and things like that, and I found myself creating using kind of AI images, and I know not everybody loves that. I'm not an artist, I'm not very good at creating my own images, so to have a tool like AI to, you know, get my imagination out into a visual form is very, very useful to me. I do understand that there's a lot of hesitancy and complications around AI taking people's jobs and things like that. I understand that. But I think, you know, things don't have to be good or bad. They can be good and bad. So yeah, we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, we can use the good and create rules around the bad, for example. So yeah, I have this deck, which is things that have come to me through meditation. So the princess, the panther, the garden. I started over the holidays, you know, you've got a bit of extra time to create these images as part of my cards. But in doing so, I ended up creating this whole fantasy realm with like all these different people who are in it and these different places, and everything became very, very real to me. So there could also be something about something that's kind of in your imagination, you know, writing a book, for example, and kind of bringing it to life in a different form. So for example, if we take Lord of the Rings, you know, it was a series of books. Is it Tolkien? I never remember this very well. Or Harry Potter, right? It started out as be in the author's imagination, you know, this world inside their own head. Then they put it down on paper, they wrote the words out, similar to I have these visualizations, and I create cards from them, right? The unicorn's there in your reading. And they have a significant meaning to me. It doesn't have to mean the same thing to anyone else. It's what my guides, you know, my imagination, and I do think that my guides talk through my imagination. It's like what they're telling to me personally. So sorry, this is a long-winded story, stick with me. So I've been, and again, this could be the process that you've been going through, or something that you want to do in 2024. So I'm just kind of talking about my own experience because it's part of the reading in some sort of way. So yeah, I've been creating these kind of like more visual versions of the cards. So the idea being, I might actually create something like my own tarot cards. I wouldn't be able to sell them because I've used AI to do it, but for my own personal use. And so in doing this and creating this world, which fit in very well, like the timing fit in very well with, oh, we're going to do D&D now. And I was like, oh, well, great, I've got all these characters, you know, I've got this whole backstory, all this stuff that I can bring to the table. A bit too much, actually, because obviously you've got to follow the story that the person in charge is telling. But, you know, I had this whole stockpile of ideas that I could draw from, you know, this inspiration. So again, I feel like because you do start with this kind of high priestess, I feel like that's part of the process for you, is this gathering of the information, right, of being able to visualize and see, and then it becoming something more grounded later in the reading. So in doing this, anyway, if I can get to the point, in doing this, there's been specific storylines coming through that have come through really strongly, and then they've actually kind of shown up in either the media I'm watching, or you know, I'll encounter something else and it'll be along the same lines. So like I don't want to kind of say too much, but mountains have been kind of a really significant thing, you know, like big mountains with kind of like a castle on top, which starts your reading, funnily enough, right? Kind of, it's not, I mean, I guess it's not on a mountain, but it kind of looks like those ones that are kind of high up on mountains. And then you actually have the mountain here from my own deck, not surprisingly. So yeah, it's funny, this thing about it, just I seem to be, there seems to be some kind of conflict for me where, because I have, and you have, again, I'm talking about myself, but it's also your reading, right? So you could find yourself going through something similar in the early part of 2024. So because you've got like the High Priestess card and the Sybil card here, both of these cards that are carrying this meaning of being able to see further than the physical world, right? You can lean into the ethers and kind of see more, and kind of like receive these, the crows are coming through. I did a reading for myself. Again, this is why I know this is not my reading specifically, because I did a reading separately for myself, and crows were very, very significant in it, which are a significant symbol to me. But it's kind of like just seeing them here is making me think of that, this idea of, similarly, like the messages coming in from the other side, or being able to gather information through your foresight, right, through your psychic abilities, so premonition, you know. So again, in a similar way to me, where I've been creating these characters, but then these characters are showing up for me in kind of the real world. So if I'm consuming some media, like for example watching Critical Role, the characters that I was creating in the next video I would watch would turn up in Critical Role. So for example, the last thing that I remember making was these kind of, in my own world, in my own imagination, and again because I've been getting this crow symbolism, I created these kind of group of kind of like shadowy figures, kind of like, you know, like the Inquisition, you know, like a spy network, or, you know, people with power, but, you know, it's very hidden. And I created them and I made them look like crows. Basically, they had like crow masks on, and you know, feather capes, and, you know, they would stalk through the village and the castles, and, you know, they had their own spy network of informants, and who were called the Squawks. I thought that was quite clever of me. And yeah, and then they kind of like showed up, these crow people showed up in the very next video that I watched of Critical Role. So I found this lots of times. Every time I thought I was creating something very unique and original, it almost immediately showed up for me in kind of like, you know, I went and watched Aquaman and they were in Aquaman, and, you know, not the Crowmen, but, you know, what I've been creating turned out to be in the movie I was watching. So, you know, things start to feel like they're not mine. You know, they're not my intellectual property. They're not my own original thoughts. I've just been channeling somebody else's original thoughts and creative. But are we all doing that? Is that there could be something about creative licensing and ownership of creative ideas going on. Yeah. So specifically for you guys, and I will pull a few cards on camera so you'll know if this is your reading or not. If you're unsure at this point, if you're feeling like this isn't resonating yet, again, give it a few weeks, it might start to play out for you. But we'll pull a few cards on camera and you can kind of determine that for yourselves. These specific cards from my deck, the Mountain, the Soil, and the Laurel Tree. And you do have this thing of, excuse me, like, so this is looking, I know that it doesn't, it's something about the perspective, right? It feels like we're a bit lower in the forest and we're coming up on this this castle in the mountains. The mountain is here. It's the first card that came out for you. And then, like I say, you have the laurel tree. It's coming up in the reading as the maple tree. So take it either way. Maple, spirit, generosity. Trees are very, very symbolic for me. I have lots of trees in my deck. And then, like I say, I've got this whole world that I'm creating. And so at the base of this kind of mountain range, and there's different, it's a big mountain range, there's like different castles within it. At the base, there's all these forests, you know, there's different types of forests, the trees kind of change, and you get to the laurel forest, which is kind of a river world. And this is all coming from the story of Daphne and Apollo, and how Apollo is love struck for Daphne and he chases her down, and, you know, she runs to the rivers and prays to her father for help. Her father's a river god, Daphne's a nymph. And then so it carries the laurel tree for me symbolically in my own kind of universe that I've been creating. It's also kind of related to the myth of Hades and Persephone, where Hades seizes Persephone, and he actually takes it, I think he appears through a river or a body of water and takes her back down into the underworld. And so this idea of kind of perhaps abuse of power comes through with the laurel tree, or you know, people in distress, or you know, the idea of kind of a place where gods and mortals meet, and also this idea of kind of going down through a portal into the underrealm, you know, all coming through in these cards. And then the soil as well. So the laurel tree can be symbolic of, kind of similar to the willow tree, it can be symbolic of cycles of life. You know, the idea of kind of Persephone going down into the underworld, and change and transformation as well, with the story of Daphne, who changes into a laurel tree. So the idea of transformation and change and life cycles, because the mountain and the soil and the idea of the underworld, it is a cycle. So the things that die, the things that go back to the soil, also nourish the new life, and the new trees, the maple trees, the laurel trees, they're being nourished by the fallen, you know, the soil, what's in the soil, the nutrients of the soil. But also things return to the earth. So there's this whole cycle going on with your reading at the beginning. You know, the significance of Hades and Pluto and Dispater, all these kind of similar gods of the underworld, is they have a job, right? They have a job to not only keep the underworld in check and in its place, because you don't want them all rising, right? But also the idea of they put nutrients back into the soil, you know. Dispater particularly, I believe, was, you know, and Pluto are symbolic of wealth. They were known as the wealthy one, because they put resources into the earth for people to come and mine. So quite a lot going on there. Again, make of it what you will. As I say, these things have been, maybe it's something about the circulation of ideas, because obviously I've drawn on these very old stories, these myths, to combine elements into something that's kind of new, like the Laurel rivers to me have a lot of different meanings. So yeah, it's how much ownership do we have over our creative ideas? Interestingly enough, talking about this, I'm just going to pull it in because, again, it could be significant. It's kind of coming through as part of the reading now. There's a I don't understand the ins and outs of it, and I'm not kind of like slandering or anything like that. I watched a video, right? I used to play with it. So some of you may be familiar with Minecraft. Again, Minecraft is another kind of role-playing adventure type of games in a similar vibe to Dungeons and Dragons, right? You fight monsters, you go in the caves, you go to different places, you buy, you trade, all these kind of elements that are similar. So yeah, like where was I going with that? I used to play it a lot. My kids were really into it. I got really into it. We watched videos on it, and there was a really popular mod called Spawn, and there's been some controversy around it, which is why I'm talking about now. I saw a video on it, and some video on the controversy, because it was strange. It was kind of like it was Minecraft, but it was not Minecraft. This is my perception of it. It was kind of like it was Minecraft, it was built in Minecraft, but it was kind of also its own game. And so I think there's been some dispute over kind of licensing, especially with Microsoft buying up Minecraft. Spawn, the creator, wasn't too keen on this because it felt like they were going to be owned by that. So it's kind of like independent licensing and creative thoughts, all these ideas coming around. But you can say, is that an independent thought? How do you get a copyright on that when it's something that is thinking as well about, just off on a bit of a tangent, but again pulling in something that could be similar. So a thing that happened this week was that the Mickey Mouse license came up, the original the Mickey Mouse on the steamboat. So it's 100 years old, so therefore the copyright licenses ran out on it. So I think Mickey Mouse is still under copyright, but it's in a different form. So again, the idea of kind of, well, what is and isn't copyright here? How much can I use of this and how much can't I use of this? It's an interesting... There's a lot of grey areas, I think, with licensing laws. And again, it's interesting that I started the reading talking about AI, because AI obviously learns from existing images. So, and yeah, I know there's artists that, for example, when I was growing up, there was an artist that I absolutely loved, and they would, their style was to clip magazines, clip small images out of magazines and create their own image using these pieces. But again, they're still using copyrighted images to create their own images. So again, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know the ins and outs and the grey areas of that. We may see some changes in 2024 to licensing regulation, which could free things up a little bit. Again, if you look at things like TikTok, maybe some of you create on TikTok, when can you use music? When can't you use music? When does it become copyright? When does it become, when can you get money off it? When can't you get money off it? There's a lot of changes happening, I think, to freedom of, creative freedom of resources. Okay. Bang on the Door was highlighted to me from Love Shack. It could be that, again, I think I might have mentioned that somebody could be banging on the door. It could be a thing that comes up for you. I've got a full-on sentence for you. Finding a quiet space to let the inner guidance come through. This came through with the feeling of being at a party and maybe having a bit of anxiety, or feeling a bit like, oh, I don't know what to do, or having a moment where you kind of, maybe you're feeling a bit lost in the crowd, perhaps. You feel a little bit like some of your independence is being taken away by the tide of the group. So it's the idea of kind of taking yourself off to a bathroom, kind of locking yourself in and kind of splashing your face with water, just sitting down and kind of taking a few deep breaths. Maybe even if you do ask for guidance, if you do meditate, finding that inner guidance, reconnecting with your core rather than kind of getting swept away with the crowds, could be an important tool for you to develop in case something happens. It's kind of like you could avoid an anxiety attack by being like, oh, hey, I can feel the warning signs of this. I'm going to take myself out. I'm going to do the things that I do to make myself ground, you know, whatever that is for you. Avoid conflict. My guys did not want this deck, and the bottom card was the Five of Wands, which in my reading fell on the floor for me. Avoid conflict. You don't have to fight to be on top, right? It's not the right energy for you in the early part of this year. Use your inner guidance instead. Your inner guidance is going to bring the right people to you. You're going to see the signs. You're going to know which way to move. You don't have to fight to be the best. There's other ways of succeeding that don't involve fighting, is a message for you. Okay, let's go to the Scrabble. What do we have for my... I was thinking to myself, you know, like with the idea of like tools of divination, and obviously I use a lot. I am very against Ouija boards. Do not like them whatsoever. But I think that using the Scrabble tiles is kind of like the similar thing. I'm like, no, don't use it thing because you'll open a portal. And yeah, I open portals all the time when I'm doing my readings. So I don't know, it's weird what you feel comfortable with and what you don't. There could be a message in that as well, like find variance. Like you might be like, oh, I really need this specific tool, especially if you're playing something like D&D. Like, is there something that's like that? Is there something that will give you the same result, but it's a different method? That could also be something for you. Reading for Aries, please. The highest message that's going to do the most good. We're reading for Aries for the beginning of 2024. How will they know it's their reading? Okay, we've got you. Your reading, obviously. I'm getting Ursula, if that's significant. You like the Sea Witch. UA. If it's E, that would be interesting. I'm getting told 4. It's almost Iago. That's what pops. Whatever pops into your mind, like go with it. And maybe nothing's coming to mind right now. You might realize later. Also, sometimes it comes through back to front when I do this. It's kind of like mirrored, so it could be OGAU. Rearrange the letters as you see fit. UA go. Your go. It's your go. You a go. It could be something about your past. It kind of, the first thing that came to my mind was Iago, which is an I, not a U, but it's a character from Othello who I find very, one of the worst villains for me is Iago, because he's so insidious and he kind of whispers in people's ears and puts ideas into people's heads. Very Machiavellian, very manipulative, and it comes from a really low vibrational place as well. You know, he's out for himself. He's acting because he's jealous of Othello, and then he exploits things like racism to you know, get into Othello's mind, and to he's very, while he's not particularly like that, I don't think he is that himself, but he uses that to, you know, get his own way. Yeah, a really nasty character who does a lot of harm. He does a lot of harm where there's a lot of good. Yeah, very despicable villain for me. So yeah, I don't know, like, because I think, why is that a distinction for me? Because I love a good villain. I'm just trying to question myself there and ask what's coming through with that, because again, it could be something for the reading. I love a good villain, you know. What's his name in Die Hard? Oh god, the actor and the person's name. It's because I'm channeling and I can't pull my own thoughts through when I'm channeling. It's kind of whatever's given to me. You know, a good villain is great. And I love an intelligent villain. I love a villain with a plan, you know, a villain who outsmarts everybody else. But I think the motivation has to be good, where, you know, if you get a villain who's kind of, as I say that, a crow flew past, you know, so I'm talking about kind of, you know, I was talking about the Inquisitors and kind of things like that, and obviously very Machiavellian, like they're not always on the side of good. But when I think you get a kind of anti-hero who is doing good through shady means, I think that is kind of the best. Like Snape, yeah, show me it's the same actor with a different character. Like Snape, that's a perfect example. Like very insightful, right? He's very shadowy, very intelligent. You know, he's got a bit of a master plan going on. You know, is he a villain? Is he a good guy? That's a great villain for me, you know. And then it ultimately kind of like sacrifices himself for the greater good. Where you have someone like Iago who's just a villain, right? Just not a good person. So I think that's where the like dislike comes through for me. Is this a anti-hero or is this a villain? I don't know. Let's move that aside. Again, make of that what you will. It could be people's initials. It could be an acronym for something. Let's get you a few words out. And we'll get you a song and we'll get you a couple of specific cards and then we'll jump into the reading that's on the table. So you have, I can't see what I'm getting by the way here, I'll kind of point it away from me so that you know that there's no sleight of hand going on. My sleight of hand, guys, is like 0. Embrace. Embrace. I'd love if it said something like potato or something now, like hug that potato. Carrot. Embrace a carrot. Donkey. What's it gonna be? Embrace passion. I love that. It's like a proper sentence. Aries, embrace a passion in 2024. And isn't that exact? I love it. I love it. It's confirmation of what I've been getting intuitively, because I've been saying this whole time, get into a hobby, right? Embrace a hobby, join a group, embrace a passion, you go, right? Give it a go. I don't know if there's something in you like, I would love to, again, like using D&D as an example, but it doesn't have to be that. I would love to go and join a D&D group. I actually would. Invite me. You know, I would love to, you know, get into that hobby more. I'd love to get into tabletop gaming, you know, create my own characters and paint them and, you know, give it a go, right? It's never too late. There's always other people who are, you know, looking for other people to join up with. You'll find your group. And even if you join something that is not quite the right group, for example, I joined a drama group when I was in high school and it wasn't quite right. And then so I was kind of moved over to a different group and that kind of fit me much better. So yeah, just, you know, give it a go and see where it takes you. Which feels very Aries, right? It feels very Fool energy. The Fool is actually here. But it doesn't feel like the Fool is you. Again, it feels a bit like you're finding your tribe. So you could be hooking up with another Aries. What do we have, please? Here we go, immediately. Queen Bee. This could be you. It could be somebody else. The perfect key there, again, with the birds. Birds featuring very heavily on your side. Again, there's 2 characters coming through. They're both with wings. One looks like bird, angel, feathered. The other one looks more like fairy wings. So take that as it resonates, leave it if it doesn't. I'm reading you as the bird, but you do flip it and reverse it if needs be. Flip the bird. I don't know. Maybe don't be flipping the bird at people. Queen Bee, all is connected. Oh, so hive energy. Aren't they interesting? 11 and 12 as well. So the idea, and look with the tree and the roots. Okay, this is really interesting because you had soil and you had a tree, right? The laurel tree. Queen bee, all is connected. So the symbolism here, like the bee is, the queen bee especially, right? She's connected to a hive. They're showing me a spider web as well, right? It's kind of like you're in the center of this web and you're aware of the activity going on around you, right? It's like everything, all the information is feeding back to the queen bee. Again, if this could be you or somebody else. Again, it could be talking about your psychic ability. You know, your web being cast out, your psychic web being cast out, and you know what comes along that back to you. It could just be the grapevine, right? You know, people talking and, you know, other people are talking and other people are talking and they, you know, eventually it trickles down to you and you find out this information. The same with all is connected, right? Like the roots of the tree. The forest is connected by mycelium, which is kind of like a fungus, but it's shown to be a kind of like a telephone line beneath the forest floor, where the trees can actually talk to each other through the roots and the mycelium. You know, like the trees on one side of a forest can detect if something's happening on the other side of the forest that they need to be aware of, and so the trees can react. You know, they can draw the branches in a certain way, or you know, the trees can actually move in a certain way that kind of creates a breaker, a natural breaker in the forest. I guess it happens over time, but again, you can Google it and fact check it if you need to. How interesting. There could be different methods of communication available to you at this time. You know, you have your hive, which could be a network of friends above ground, but you could also have your roots that are below ground. There could be something especially to do with ancestry, which I know has come up for you quite often in the last year of readings, especially with trees, because trees symbolize ancestry to me, and I'm going to talk about that when we get into your reading. The idea of kind of like going down into the soil, down into the past of something, like why is this the way it is now? Let's look at what led us here, right? Let's look at the ancestry, let's look at the movement and migration of people and see how we got to this point and how this tree grew. It's like I'm associating the tree and the hive as being kind of all one thing, you know, like a tree being its own ecosystem. Now it's tying back, how interesting, now it's tying back to my own readings. Because they had this thing about the tree in the bubble repeatedly in my readings. It's kind of like an isolated ecosystem. The tree can also talk about the body, you know, our own physical body, which is in itself an ecosystem, right? We have bacteria, you know, cells, and all kinds of things going on, like our gut bacteria, you know, you know, the little things that live on us that we're not even aware of. Like, as I say, that fly flew off me. So, you know, habitats and ecosystems and how these relate to each other could be significant for you. Maybe this is the work you do, maybe it's your job. All is connected. And again, as I was saying, it's the strangest thing, because as I was kind of creating my own characters and my own cards, and seeing these creations show up around me and the things that I was just about to watch, you know, it's kind of like we are all tapping into the same consciousness, we are all drawing from the same pool of resources here. So is there anything new under the sun, Horatio? I don't know. Okay, what else do we have, please, for Aries? So this is, my eldest bought me this. It's Dungeons and Dragons Tarot. It's one of my Christmas presents. So let's see what else we have for Aries. Anything else, please, for Aries? Anything else for Aries? I do like to get cards on camera just so you all know that I'm legit, right? I've not set any of this up. The Chariot, 2 of charisma there as well. So the Chariot talks about feeling like you're in control, feeling like you're successful, people are cheering you on. It's kind of like a moment of victory. You're like, I've done this, like, look at me, look at my achievements, look at how in control of my own life I am. Look at me moving forward with these opposing forces that could be a block under my wheel, but somehow I'm making it work, and this is what's bringing me success. And yet we have this creature in his hand, like a possum or something. He's almost using it like you would a crystal ball or a guidance tool, right? It's like he's... What is going on with that? Where's the book? Let's have a look at what the book says about this guy. That's what it looks like if anyone's interested. The Chariot. So it's an interesting mix of kind of Dungeons and Dragons and Tarot. Kind of draws on both. It says following through on your intentions and manifesting your desires, and you do have embrace a passion, so follow through with it. If you've got something that you want to get into, do it, right? And then it says you'll find a trapped, this is kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons prompt, you'll find a trapped Ifrit who offers you his services for a year if you can find a way to free him. So I guess this creature he has in his hands is an Ifrit. I'm going to Google that as well. Let's read what an Ifrit is, because again, anything that comes through is part of the reading. So D and D, Ifrit. I'm just going to, I think my kid might, well, it doesn't look like this is what he's got in his hands. I couldn't find Ifrit, but I could find Ifriti, which sounds like the tribe, right? A group of Ifrit is called an Ifriti. It's, I don't know, it doesn't look like that. I don't know what he's got in his hand. But you can look that up if you want to. It says, if the Ifriti dies, its body disintegrates into a flash of fire and a puff of smoke, leaving behind only the equipment the Ifriti was wearing or carrying. The Ifriti's innate spellcasting ability is charisma. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. It was a type of genie native to the elemental plane of fire. Hang on, let me look at this. This is the wiki. They're a type of genie native to the elemental plane of fire. They were unpredictable creatures with fiery forms and spectacular magical powers. That's so funny because, like I said, I've been kind of like developing my little world. The next thing that I was they resembled devils. The next thing that I was going to do in my little world on the other side of one of these mountains, I've kind of created everything in the area of these mountains. I kind of wanted to talk about what was beyond the mountains. I was going to have kind of like over one side, I was going to have like a whole kind of like fire plane, you know, of like volcanic, almost like the surface of Mars, like a red place that if you go out far enough, you run into kind of these kind of demon looking, what are they called? Oh, I can't think what they're called now. There's one of the the things that you can be in D&D, like that look like little devils. I was gonna kind of have like this whole ogre devilly thing going on. But I like that, the idea of it being like a genie, being able to grant wishes. Okay, I don't know, maybe you guys are coming through like little genies, like, we'll grant your wishes. What do you want? Be careful what do you wish for. Let's get you a song. So, like I say, no, I'm not cheating. Love Shack is the one that randomized for you. Let's go. Another song for Aries, please. Okay, matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. That was a advert for Auto Trader. But the song that randomized for you was Cannonball, which you may or may not recognize by the name. It's that one that's like do-noon, 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 do-noon. Maybe I'll play like a second of it without getting copyrighted. I don't know. Yeah. Cannonball, maybe cannonballing into something. Maybe again, this could be something to do with whatever you're up to, this fantasy thing. Maybe you're firing cannonballs. Maybe that's the weapon of choice for something. I don't know. I feel like Cannonball, it could be a bit of a message of kind of like jump straight into it, right? Like the Fool, like jump off that cliff, jump into the water. Obviously, if this is a real life thing that you're physically doing, be safe. There are rocks and things that can be hidden if you're doing something like that. But the idea of like jump straight in, right? Feet first, like, you know, dive right into something. Cannonball into it. Make a splash, perhaps. Right, Aries. So similar to what we're getting into the full reading now. So like I say, the stuff that was coming through intuitively, the idea of like going to this place, right? That's that feels like it's in alignment with you. It feels like it's kind of calling you there, or it feels like, you know, spirit is directing you in this way. The idea of kind of like going to this castle, like interestingly enough, on the underline of the first deck I pulled for you. Oh, that's interesting as well. I haven't looked beneath the first card, but the next card is really interesting. You've got this circle, right? It kind of looks like, it kind of has like King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table vibes to it, you know? So it's kind of like, this is looking to me like everybody meeting at the place, you know, everybody putting their hand on the cards on the table, the hand on the table, like everybody kind of like, you do have the idea of like contracts coming up with justice, so it's kind of like everybody turning up and signing the contract, you know? Signing the NDA before you go in. I would be wary of anything that asks you to do that. But then underneath that is the Ancient Ones and the Vision Quest as well. And the Witness and what's that one? The Medicine Wheel. So it just feels like going to a place to meet up with a group. And it feels a bit like, again, it feels like brotherhood. So it feels like whether you know these people or not, you know, they feel like they're kind of like brothers in arms. They feel like they're in alignment with you in some sort of way. Again, like you all have this same interest. You're all there at the table to play D&D together, right? So it's kind of like you're putting your character cards down. Something like that. But it's like we're all here, we're all showing up at this place. And then interestingly enough, underneath, like these were like the first cards that I saw, right? As I was kind of, I hadn't even pulled your full reading yet. And, you know, the first things that were showing up in the underlying as I was pulling cards for you, underneath the circle is the king, right? It's like sat at the head of the table, if you like. You know, here's King Arthur, here's the king, you know, with his ancient ones, with his old friends at the table, ready to play, ready to go on this. I don't want to say this, the C word, CRU, because I think that has very negative, invasive connotations. But you know, like, here we are to talk about this. Here we are to meet up again. And you know, this idea of kind of like this king of earth, he always feels like he's been here for a very long time. And you see how it's like his face is kind of growing with the mushrooms. Kind of makes me think of if you've ever watched again, another kind of fantasy romp, Game of Thrones. There's the guy in the tree, right? And again, like the guy in the tree, he's kind of been sitting there for a long time. He's almost like become part of the tree. Or he sometimes reminds me of at the end of Indiana Jones. Again, this was something that came up in my own kind of fantasy land. You know, at the end of Indiana Jones, where the knight's there and he's been guarding the chalice, right, for thousands of years. You know, he's been there for so long. You know, he's part of the place. He can't leave this place, so people have to go to him. But at the same time, with the idea of the mycelium and the network, right, and the trees, because he's the king of earth, right, he's the king of trees. He's kind of like the oak king, if you will, which again is kind of one of my characters. You know, the idea of kind of everything's connected. He has this network. He's connected to the soil of the place. And excuse me, tummy rumbling. Again, I've had a bit of a stomach flu, so I'm not I've had a very, very tentative breakfast this morning of like a Jacob's cracker. So excuse me if my tummy does rumble. But he's like, everything is, you know, this is part of the extension of himself. This soil, this land is an extension of him. He's very, he, she, they is very wrapped up in this place. Underneath that, interestingly as well, you have the messenger. It's weird to me when this happens again, because I have this energy, right? So when I tap into my own creativity, I'm also tapping into collective consciousness. And so the things that I create are also the things that are showing up in the world. So it's always strange to me when this happens, because this is looking like part of my world that I've been creating at the base of these mountains is this big oak forest. You know, I mentioned like this runs into kind of like the riverlands of the laurel forest, but the oak forest is kind of the core of this place. And everybody kind of wears these antlers and they're all druidy, and it's all this whole thing. So now it's looking to me like, it's kind of looking to me like now I'm in that place, right? Now I'm in, but it's lovely. It is maybe I'm supposed to pull this in for you now. It's this feeling of the people who live off the earth, right? The people who are connected to nature. You know, they grow the crops, they grow the seeds, they can talk to the animals. You know, everything is one big ecosystem that works together, that has respect for, you know, even if the hunters come into this place, there is this code of conduct where, you know, okay, yes, you can hunt for food and for resources, but you mustn't overhunt, right? And you must respect the animals, and you must become part of this ecosystem that sustains itself, and that doesn't, no one thing takes too much, because then it upsets the whole ecosystem and the whole thing falls down and nobody has anything at that point. So this understanding of life and death and nature and growth that comes along with this place. Interestingly enough, underneath that is the Magician card. Aren't these fabulous? Like, I love them. You know, this whole collected, they don't have a castle, just significantly enough, like yeah, they just kind of live in the woods. But yeah, that's what it's kind of looking like to me. How interesting, like in the roots of the tree, she kind of looks like she's, oh, look at the following deck. Look at all these cards. Again, they are from one deck, but there's a variety of cards in here. So you don't look like, this doesn't seem to me like this is you. Again, take it as it resonates, leave it if it doesn't. You can figure out which character you are in this. That it feels like that king it feels like this is the queen bee, right? It's the same energy. This person who's in the center, they are the ruler. They are very, very connected to the land. You know, they have a lot of messages. Like, they don't leave that place themselves. The queen doesn't tend to leave the hive, I don't think. But the worker bees come and go, right? They bring the messages, they bring the resources in to the person who's in control. How interesting. Okay. So it could be that everybody is here because there is a new beginning. Like, look at this with the daffodil fairy, new beginnings, the elves, playfulness, the wood nymphs. Doesn't it look like this is a gathering of all, even the dragons, right? It looks like it's a gathering of all the... Oh, it's so D&D. It's crazy to me because, of course, I use these cards all the time, but it's just feeling so much like I'm in this kind of fantasy world in your reading. It's so cool. So like the fairies, the elves, the nymphs, the dragons, all these woodland creatures kind of coming into this space, and perhaps with a lot of beauty and power and playfulness. You know, it's a really nice energy. And then some acceptance, right? Letting go. Spirit guardian of autumn. There's something we need to let go of. There's something that's ending because a new beginning is coming. We need to accept this. And go into this new beginning with our playfulness and our beauty and our power, right? We need to carry this energy into the new situation or the new place. I want to say there is a new place for you. This is kind of how the reading ends. So I'm going to kind of circle back to that. And again, with foresight and Sybil, it feels like I'm identifying this as you, but do flip and reverse it as needs be. It feels like your role in this is because you do have foresight, right? Because maybe the idea of, I've seen the cycles of nature before. I've seen the way things come and grow. I know the patterns of things. And so I know that there is this change happening. And I know that, you know, change is inevitable. It's all about how we embrace it and whether we're prepared for it. And, you know, like this, again, this idea of kind of, let's take the good of this place. Let's take the positive vibes and, you know, the feeling of brotherhood and the feeling of, respect for the whole system. Let's take all these values forward into the new phase. Again, because you've got this heads up from the high priestess, which I want to say is you, the foresight, which is you. Because you do seem to be tapping into, with these cards here, you do seem to have an ability to tap into, it's like the archives or the histories, right? It's like yes, there is something to be said about living in the moment and jumping into the new, but you can do so armed with the knowledge and wisdom that comes from the past. Because this to me is looking, again, trees to me can symbolize ancestry, right? The roots go down into the past. This is what nurtured you. This is what made you grow. But the branches reach up into the future, right? They reach up into the new. This is where the new growth happens. So this idea of kind of like the past and the future being represented by the tree. And then this is looking to me almost like, you know, like if you slice a tree and it doesn't feel like that's happening, although perhaps. But it's kind of like if you were to draw a kind of cross section, you know, you'd see the rings of the tree, but it's not looking to that. It's almost like a hollow tree, right? It's like you can follow these rings. If you were to be able to psychically visualize the inside of this tree, you know, you would be able to follow these rings down into the roots, into the history, into the ancestry, and to feel out where this has come from. So, and I want to say this is something that you're doing not for the place that you know, because obviously you know that place. You seem to be approaching this new place, right? And it's taking courage to do so. So whatever this castle is symbolizing, this place where everybody is going to go and kind of show up at the table, it seems like it's not, again, if everybody who I'm talking about seems to be from the Oaklands, right? It feels like this is somewhere that's like, you know, you can see this castle kind of, excuse me, my tummy's rumbling again. You can see this castle kind of like raising up through the trees. You can see the peak of it up on the mountains, right? It kind of looms over you. And so you're going to this place, you're going to this new table, right? To meet with these new people, like ambassadors or something. Or because perhaps there's a big change that's coming that's threatening the whole the whole realm, like all the kingdoms. I know it's coming through as being so fantasy, and I will try and ground it for you. Again, it could be like a workplace, right? You're going to have to go to excuse me, I'm so sorry. Like maybe you've got you're from a certain set of offices, but you need to go to the parent company, right? You need to go to the kind of control room of the company. So yeah, everybody's going to this one place to meet. So it could be co-workers and office and things like that. Just again, ground it down in reality if you can. So there is some anxiety about this. Again, it is taking courage to go, because it feels unfamiliar. It feels like it's not part of your land. It's not part of your home, your tribe. It's somewhere else. It's somewhere new, right? So it's taking courage to go there. Aspen could be something significant. It's like the trees are unfamiliar. And so I'm seeing this as you. You seem to be very connected with the birds. Again, like the idea of, I've changed my channel name to Tanaquil. Tanaquil had the power of, I want to say, is it augury? I can never say the word, but it's the old kind of ancient Roman Greek term for being able to read the patterns of birds, right? To be able to, sort of like Romulus and Remus did. If you're familiar with the myth of Romulus and Remus, to know who should be king, they go and they look at the flight of birds, and the way that the birds move tells them who should be king, but there's a disagreement about this. So this seems like this is part of your high priestess. I'm saying you, again, do flip it and reverse it if needs be. Your high priestess ability seems to be in this meditation, being able to, like how that crow flew across my window, right? It's like you can tap into the beings of this place. You can tap into the energy of this place. You can tap into the people who are here. So again, it could be actual literal people, because the Nine of Air, I'm trying to say, the Nine of Air is talks about anxiety, mental anxiety, right? A bit of a panic attack, perhaps. So you have to work through this. You have to have the courage to actually step out the door and go to this place where it's unfamiliar, which of course it's natural for us to. Imagine you were a caveman, right? And you had to leave your community to go to a community that you're not familiar with. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. You know, part of those feelings of anxiety, it's not a flaw, it's a feature. It's designed to keep you safe, right? It's designed to kind of have you on high alert and to be looking for the red flags and the warning signs that, you know, something's going to go down and you need to hightail it out of there. You know, anxiety is not a bad thing. It's a design feature to keep you alive. You know, sometimes it can be a bit off kilter. Sometimes it can be ramped up a bit too high. Sometimes it can, you know, it's not a bad thing to have anxiety. It's a bad thing if it's running out of control, you know. So having those, again, like those practices in place that work for you, and it's going to be different for everybody, that help you to dial that back down, and that help you to ground, and that help you to, you know, whether it's deep breaths or I count, again, I've got a phobia of being sick, so when having my stomach flu was not the best thing for me. So I kind of went into myself and I was counting through it. I had really bad stomach cramps as well, so I was doing I kind of fell back without even realizing I was doing it into my counting, which was what I did when I was giving birth. You know, like stomach cramps, you know, a lot of pain. I counted my way through it. That's what works for me. So yeah, whatever works for you there. So again, it's kind of like feeling those butterflies in your stomach, feeling the fear, feeling the anxiety as you approach this place, but then actually reading the place itself, reading the people who are there, reading, again, like stepping into this new hive, right? You're kind of looking at the bees, you're looking at the birds. The crows to me symbolize, in my own deck, you know, people talking. Like I say, almost like a spy network. It's like the people who are there. So it's kind of like as you're going into this place, you know, it's bustling, it's happy, it's, you know, people are smiling, people aren't scared, you know, the people who are there are happy. You know, it's a warm, inviting place where, you know, as you're going into this, you know, say this is a new office, you know, people are smiling, people are happy, people are sharing donuts, you know, does anyone want a coffee? You know, it's got this energy to it. It's got this vibe about it that feels really good, because next to this is happiness. So you're reading this situation, you're going in as the high priestess, kind of, you're your mind open, your intuition open, kind of like, you know, sending out your own feelers to feel out this place before you go, right? So it could be asking people like, what's it like to work there? And they're like, oh, it's great, you know, like everybody's so happy. And or, you know, you're looking it up online and it looks, you know, all the photos look really good. So it's kind of like having this senses on high alert as you go in, because you're reading the mood of the room. But it looks like everything, because something about the blue butterflies and the blue bird, right, and this being happiness, is kind of like the signs are telling you this is good, the signs are telling you this is happy, right? And then this is followed by happiness, is followed by generosity. So, you know, this place, you know, maybe people are very, very generous here. Maybe they have a lot of resources. So, you know, it's easy to share when you're doing well, right? If you're not worried about where your next meal is coming from, if you've got an abundance of food, it's easy to be generous and sharing, you know, give where other people don't. So, you know, you're seeing these signs of happiness and generosity. You know, this seems like, you know, the hive that you're going into feels like a really good hive. Right, it's like love shack baby, yeah, you know, it's got this like happy vibe to it. So like I say, you seem to be have some kind of affinity with the birds, because you're coming in like this, right, or like these winged creatures. And so the place that you're going into, there's a familiarity because they're also winged, I want to say, you know, these, you're going into the fairy realm. So here we have these fairies, and like this fairy here as well. There's a few different fairies in this reading. This feels like, you know, you're going into this place and these fairies, these elves, these new co-workers, maybe very pixie-like co-workers, they have this fun, young, perhaps maybe they're very young, playful, good intentioned energy to them. They seem to be calling to you. Maybe there's something to do with the music that they're playing, the vibration that they're putting out, which seems to be saying, hey, come and join us, come and join the party, we're having a lot of fun here. The Four of Fire can symbolize a celebration, a party, a get-together, a celebration of milestones. So it does seem to be saying, hey, the castle's having a party, everyone's invited, you know, we're putting the word out, we're letting everybody know that the party's here, like, come to the love shack, baby. Come and have some fun. Interestingly as well, because you have generosity here, you also have the giveaway. Now this is looking to me a little bit more like you being part of the giveaway, you being part of, like Cinderella being invited to the ball, right? The whole realm's invited, you know, here's your invitation, come and enjoy our generosity, something like that. It's like you're part of this, you seem to be receiving or giving something in this card. You know, it's like the invitations are being sent out kind of thing. Especially because it's kind of like followed by, see the similarity of the upwards call of those cards. The Fool, like, come and have some fun, come and leave your worries at the door, you know, come and just blow off some steam for a while with us, this kind of idea. I'm just going to take a quick break and get a quick drink of water. Jumping back in, this is what I'm dealing with today. Grapes and crackers, dry Jacob's crackers. It does feel like the sort of stuff that you'd have in your pocket if you were adventuring. It's like, and what resources do you have in your pocket? Crackers and grapes. One cracker and 2 grapes. Oh, that'll sustain 1 health point. Okay, like, health points restored. I am sorry if I start burping or something in this reading. I'm so sorry. Okay, so you seem to be assessing the situation, right? So you don't seem to be there yet. You seem to be saying, shall I go? It looks good from the outside, from what I can gather, from what I can sense, you know, what people are telling me. It seems like it's good, but maybe you've done a lot of work in, you know, getting to yourself to a point where you feel in control of yourself, where you feel in control of your anxiety, perhaps with these 2 cards. You know, you feel like you've got yourself into quite a stable place mentally, despite perhaps having a lot of anxieties or a lot of you know, feeling like you could fall at any minute. But you're getting to this point where, you know, even though you feel like you're on a cliff top, you feel like you're able to kind of hold yourself still in that, right? Despite whatever's going on around you. For example, life could have thrown some crazy stuff at you in 2023. 2023, I feel like, was a challenging year. 2024, I think we're all going to be feeling a lot more stable. Just with that shift of Pluto going from Capricorn, it's been retrograde and all sorts, and it's finally going into Aquarius. So January, February, I feel like we're going to get a lot of more stability with that. You know, we're going to feel less of a sense of the rug being pulled out from under our feet. So I think when we've been dealing with a lot of, you know, plates spinning in the air and a lot of uncertainty, you know, it does raise our anxiety and stress and things like that. So we do have to find these techniques like doing yoga, for example, or meditation, or just listening to sleep sounds at night when you're trying to sleep, whatever it is for you, counting to 10. You know, you've got your methods now to keep yourself steady. They keep showing me, you know, like the tree pose in yoga where you stand on one leg and then you kind of close your eyes. Like when you first start doing it, you tend to fall over a lot. But, you know, the more you do it, the more you get that kind of core strength, and the more you're able to kind of like hold yourself steady and not wobble. So you feel like you've got the ability to hold yourself steady and not wobble, while kind of doing this thing where from where you are, you send out your senses, right? You check what's going on. It's kind of like you've got like a radar for the environment almost. So then you get this invite, or you get this opportunity, you assess the situation, and you have this moment of being like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, with wandering between realms. I think there's a feeling for you of, maybe this is you, maybe it's this feeling of no, I'm just gonna sit right here, right? Like, well, that little girl, I'm just gonna sleep right here. Like I've made my hill, I'm gonna defend it, you know. I've claimed my ground, I'm gonna sit down and I'm not gonna be moved. Kind of like me when I have one drink. Like, I get up, I dance, I have a second drink, third drink, I ain't moving. Where I sit is where I stay. You know? So it kind of could be something like that. But again, it feels a little bit like this indecision, this kind of being half in, half out. It could also be something about being half in your imagination space, or half in your spiritual realm, and half in this reality. But then we have this completion. It feels a little bit to me like, again, looking at this with like the half in, half out, there's something under that as well. You know, do I stay or do I go? Like, what you're sort of half taking the leap of faith. This is coming in with contract, like justice, completion. It feels a little bit like I have a decision point. Do I sign the contract? Do I sign on the bottom line? Do I agree to this? Do I jump in, or do I sit down and stay where I am? It has a feeling of, you know, when sometimes we're like this, when we're sat in indecision, sometimes if our spirits guides want us to move, they kind of throw something at us to make us take that leap. With the lightning, because you're up on this hill, right? You're up on this the top of this mountain. Do I take, trying to get a view of the other mountain, do I take the leap of faith? It seems to me a little bit like, you know, like lightning happens and it scares you, and you jump because it's made you jump, so you're jumping anyway now. Like, spirit made the decision for you. Or it could be something to do with like, it just looks a bit like, it looks to me like lightning striking, and you know, striking all your companions, all your birds, right? All these things that you got your thoughts. You know, if this is your own thoughts, you've got control over them. And so then the lightning strikes, and they're kind of, you lose them. There's this moment of kind of losing your footing, or of panic, I want to say, because with completion, it's kind of like spirit saying that's done, that's complete, right? You're not going around in circles here anymore. Maybe this is like going around in circles in your brain, like spiraling. You could be spiraling. The universe is saying, like, that's enough of that. Okay, we're making this decision for you. Maybe even removing the things that were making you anxious in the first place. But instead of, because it's not your decision to take this jump, you have this moment where it feels like you're falling. It feels like, again, it's almost like you go back into spiraling. With falling angel and spiritual narcolepsy, it's like something happens that knocks you off your feet. There's something that happens that gives you this moment of maybe getting, not, you feel a bit like you're on the wrong side of spirit or something like that. It's kind of like, but I want to say it's not as bad as it seems. Maybe you get very overwhelmed. Again, sometimes when we go into a new place, we can feel very, because it feels like these two cards are next to each other. And there's a lot of energy there, right? Remember all the people who are at the table, all the fairies and the dragons and the ancient ones, you know, the kings there. So it's like there's a lot of it's an emotional situation, right? There's a lot of memories there. There's a lot of big feelings around that table. Like, probably good for the most part. It feels quite good. But it can be overwhelming. You know, we can be overwhelmed with love, we can be overwhelmed with joy, you know, like, you know, you can have a great party with like your friends, your family, and the next day you kind of get like the hangover anxiety where it's kind of like, oh, what did I say, what did I do? You know, it could be that sort of thing where it's kind of like the energy is just so big, even though it's good, it's so big that it kind of, you know, you have to take a step back from it. You feel a little bit, I want to say, especially if there's something to do with your psychic ability. Maybe you are very, very empathetic, you're very sensitive. You know, it's never just your own emotions, you're also carrying the emotions of the room. There's a lot of overwhelm happening there. You know, it can be that it's too much for you and you have this moment of losing yourself in it. So again, like I said at the beginning of the reading, it feels like that's the moment where, because it's spiritual narcolepsy and you're this fallen angel, it's kind of like, remember that spirit is your guide. Remember how you connect, right? Remember that although you have this moment of falling, you do have those resources to kind of like to land, to get back on your feet, something like that. It's like, remember, there's something about, remember your uniqueness, remember what got you there in the first place, because the unicorn to me can talk about a lot of different things. Normally it's like believe in the impossible. Today is talking to me about your own uniqueness, your own something quirky about you. You know, not all horses have a unicorn horn. So your quirkiness is kind of why you're being accepted into this place in the first place, right? It's kind of like, imagine you sat around a table and everybody's playing Dungeons and Dragons. Most people look like, you know, there's something a bit crazy about them, right? They've either got a crazy backstory, or, you know, they've got horns coming out of their head, or they've got like dragon scale skin. You know, it's kind of like this ragtag crew of strange characters, but somehow it works, right? Somehow they click. Somehow it's like, this is where I belong. Even though we're all different and weird, like, this is the place. So there's something about that. It's like, you're not supposed to fit in a way where you know, every single one of you looks like a bee in the hive. It's kind of like you're all weird, unique bees. I don't know, something like that. It's so strange to me though, because it's like, this is all you, right? This is all you with your angel wings, you know, being, perhaps you've got a lot of Libra in your chart, or perhaps this is a very unfamiliar feeling for you. Again, I've not got any Aries in my chart, I've got a lot of Libra in my chart. So indecision, weighing things up, you know, wanting all the information before I take the leap of faith. Very, very me. Maybe you're dealing with a Libra, maybe this is just me in your reading. I don't know. But yeah, this feeling of you like, perhaps if you've got a lot of Libra in your chart, you like being in the middle, right? You like being on the fence. You like holding, perhaps even being queen bee, right? And being somebody who listens to everybody, who, look at how she's weighing things up. Look at the bees in her hands. Yeah, okay, this feels like definitely like something about you. Look at the similarity. You know, you like everybody to be happy. You like to compromise. You like to negotiate. You like to, if this is you, it could be somebody else now. It felt like you, but maybe, I don't know, it depends how much Libra you've got in your chart. Maybe you've got like Libra Mercury placement, Libra Venus, Libra Mercury, Libra Mars, I would say. You know, like everybody's kind of in your ear, everybody's got something to say, everybody's bringing you the news, bringing you the information. You know, you get conflicting information, you do the Judge Judy thing of weighing it up. Then you fall. again, just it can be like legalities and contracts and things like that. But I want to say it's okay, because actually you're falling into, it's like you're falling into the realm of the fairies who've been calling to you all this time anyway. Like, they've been asking you to come. They've been trying to attract you, right? They've been playing the music, they've been you know, sending out the vibrations, like, look at how good it is here, look at how happy you'd be here. Maybe it's something a bit like, if you don't jump you'll be pushed, you know, like you've been in a job for a certain amount of time, it's quite comfortable there, you're quite familiar, but there's this new job that you've been wanting to get into, you know, a new avenue that you've wanted to explore. So, you know, that workplace closes down, the old workplace closes down, you're forced to look for a job, and it just so happens there's a job opening at the new place. It could be something like that, because it does feel like something's a little bit out of your control. Underneath the Seven of Fire, the Hermit card came out with the initial kind of cards that came out, but when I reshuffled to get the order of the cards, it kind of flew out onto the table at this point. So it's almost like maybe there is a door that's shut to you. Maybe there is one thing that you're pushed out of. Again, it's with completion. So it could be, you know, you suddenly feel like you're on your own, you know, like you were the Queen Bee, perhaps you were the Regina George, and all of a sudden you're outside the hive and there's a new queen, and you're like, oh, my network, you know. It could be something like that. But like I say, it's because you're being led very obviously. It's almost like, why is this taking you so long, Aries, to the place of the fairies, where again, generosity, happiness, stability, what have we got? Power, playfulness, beauty. You land here. It's almost looking to me like you land, right? You come in, splashing the water in front of this person. And it's funny with the two swans as well. The two swans are part of one of my little kingdoms as well. Swans are very symbolic of something. So it's like you land here in this place that's kind of like, it is a big hodgepodge of different people from different places, but it's got a vibe to it, it's got a community to it, it's got a really positive feel to it. It's a good place, you know. People come here to trade, people come here to do their work, kind of thing, but it's a blessed place, you know. It's got good feelings. And so you land here. Spirit stability. Look at it. I don't know if this is a laurel tree. I wonder what kind of tree this is. With these, like in this fairy's lap almost, but then it has radical acceptance. And with the swans as well, you know, this story of the ugly duckling, like this person doesn't see their beauty until they realize, till they find the other swans, you know. It's kind of like you're finding the other swans, or you're finding the other unicorns, but you're not all the swans. It's like one of you is a unicorn, one of you is a swan, but you see the beauty in each other, something like that. Radical acceptance, especially because the smoky mirrors here, right? Doesn't that have an ugly duckling feeling to it? It's like, you see how this swan's looking down into the water. It's almost like you had a distorted image of yourself. You'd look in the mirror and you'd see something, you'd see a distortion. You weren't seeing the true you until you come face to face with another one who, and then you understand yourself better because you've met someone who's like you. I don't know, something like that. But again, you've got some really gorgeous stuff here, because you've also got radical acceptance and compassion with the heart home. So there's all this heart energy at this point into the reading. It really does feel like, you know, if you didn't quite fit in that last place, you know, you're feeling very accepted in the new place. Okay, and all that gorgeous energy of happiness and power and beauty and good stuff. But with knowledge and air spirit, I want to say this is your energy, right? You're this one with the higher knowledge. You're the high priestess, right? You've got this kind of arcane, bird's eye view. Yeah. It's like, because perhaps you went up to that highest point, perhaps, and came back down again. I don't know. Or went back down the other side. You've got that higher knowledge, which I want to say is, kind of coming as a gift to these people, which is why I want to say you're feeling so appreciated, you know, because you've got this bird's eye view of the place. You know, it's like now you're back down in the woods here at this point. Perhaps you do know of a new beginning that's coming in, so you're telling people to prepare, you know, prepare for this new beginning. I've been to I've been to the castle. I've been to talk to the ancient ones. I've been to, I've been to that table, to that place. I know, I've seen the vision, right? I've seen the vision of what is to come. Maybe there's something about like we're all included, like no animal left behind, something like that. But this change is happening, this change is coming. So, you know, maybe these people are very thankful for you because you're giving them kind of a heads up that, you know, they need to move. They need to, you know, like how I said, the mycelium underneath the forest floor, if there's something going on one side of the forest, they'll tell the other side, and the other side can kind of almost make a natural breaker. So there's this uprooting, right? Discipline time. There's this, the trees are being uprooted now, but then they're not damaged. They're whole, you know, they're with home compassion. It's like this is being done with a lot of compassion. So again, it could be something about moving workplaces. Like we know this is disruptive to you, and we know that this is a big change for you, but we're going to give you time to adjust to these. It could be like new working patterns, you know, like people have worked from home, so maybe the company's found a different office somewhere else that's a bit cheaper. So it's like, right, we know this is disruptive. We're not going to ask you to uproot your whole life, but these are your options, you know. So it could be that there is an uprooting. I need to move home here. I need to, it's time. We've been in this place long enough, but we're going to move the whole community. We're going to move the whole office, the whole workforce. And yeah, a few people may go, a few people may come, but we want to, these values that we have that are so cherished by us, we want to make sure we take these values of kind of fellowship and generosity and playfulness to the new situation, right? As a group, as a forest. There's something as well about, because these two cars are next to each other with the swans. Can you see the swan boat? There's a story in this. I don't know how it applies to you, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So last night, one of the things that I was trying to do was to generate the images of some of the ships that my people use, my people from my kingdom. And one of the places, and this was the good place, right? This was a place where I was talking about like all the different people coming from all different places, but it has this really positive vibe. It's a really enlightened place, and the family there are they like to acquire knowledge, and they, you know, they have like a priest who, you know, gets this kind of higher vibrational knowledge, like he's very respected, and you know, all this good stuff that this place has. But the symbol of this royal family is swans. And so on the front of the ship, I was trying to have this ship with like white sails and gold flags, and I was trying to tell it like it's a Tudor ship, but the front of it is a swan. So I was trying to say like, you know, a swan plow, not plow, a swan prow, a swan, I think they're called a figurehead. And the AI just did not understand what I was asking for. It couldn't do it for me. And I thought, how silly, because like so commonly, you know, ships have these figureheads and often they're a mermaid. I was like, how it should be able to understand the input to change this into a swan. And yeah, it just couldn't, just could not do it. It just had these really distorted kind of half swan monstrosities. So I don't know if there's something about the limits of AI there. You know, there are limits to what AI can do. It can learn very quickly, but there's still things that, you know, it needs a human to say, that is not a swan. Dude, that is not what this person's asking for. That doesn't make sense. Because to the AI, it doesn't know what does and doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, there is still a need for people. I want to say in these situations, however that means. You know, there are limits. There are limits to what the AI can do. So then we have this thing where it's all looking very good, like this heart home, radical acceptance of the situation, perhaps, that this needs to be done. But then we have this path opening up, right? It's like the pathway becomes clear. Like, here's the ladder to the new beginning. You know that you need to go through this portal to this new situation, which actually feels really good, Aries. I'd be in there. I think the hesitancy comes from the fear of, because you've created some stability for yourself. And again, here we have this, the fairies are also offering stability, right? it's like you seem to have a fear of you losing your stability and falling into this spiraling energy. And yet, on the other side is stability. It's like you're feeling unstable, perhaps because you're refusing to, or you're taking too much time to get out of an old situation where, you know, a lot of the stability of the new situation is, it's like you will feel stable. Once this is complete, you will feel stable on the other side. You'll feel more stable, I want to say. And maybe time is the issue. You know, sometimes if you have to uproot and it's like your whole family needs, maybe kids need to go to a different school, maybe there's a lot of kind of you know, like moving house is stressful as it is, so moving to a new territory can be really difficult when you're unfamiliar with the place. It's like, well, where are the good houses, where are the good areas, you know, where are the good schools? So there could be a lot of stuff that is kind of with the justice card, it's kind of paperwork, right? It's like contracts, paperwork, things that need to be signed, things that need to be organized. It could be very what's the word that I'm trying to think of, like officey. I can't think of the word. So you know, these things do take time. You know, I'm going through something at the moment that is you know, solicitors, and it takes a, you know, it's meant to take a certain number of months. It's taking a lot longer than that, and it's you know, you can only go as fast as the situation allows, as the institutions allow. You know, if there's a lot of cogs involved, you know, some cogs turn slowly and everybody has to wait for that cog to finally turn. So yeah, the time could actually be to your benefit. It could be time to adjust, time to organize, time to sort out. So again, it might not be a bad thing, but like I say, this path opens up, and I think with it being solitariness and the desert, there could be a period where perhaps you do feel quite alone. You know, you do feel quite, you know, you do feel a little bit shut out of one situation and finding yourself kind of alone and a bit lost in another situation. But I want to say there's a reassurance here that the birds have followed you. Look at the three birds in the tree. It's like your friends are still here. You know, you can, it's almost like a comfortable silence, or you know, like the kind of friends that you know so well that, you know, you can just sit silently with them and be perfectly companionable in that silence. Or you know, you can be at a distance from people, you can be on your own, but you don't feel alone because you know that those friends are on the other side of the phone. Something like that. It's like, you know that you're loved, you know that you're accepted, and so you're never truly alone, even when you are in solitude. And it could be even friends on the other side as well, who are, when you're on your own, you feel them around you. And it gives you this kind of confidence from within and strength from within, because they're yours, right? They are, it's an unbreakable bond, and they're always with you. So you never have to fear being alone. That guidance is always there as a resource for you. Something like that. Okay, I hope this was a helpful reading for you. Again, it looks like a very, very, very positive reading. So even though you're going to face challenges where you're going to have a little bit of stress and anxiety, because I think there is a change coming through, and you are doing that thing of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, trying to assess the new situation. It looks like once you actually start to move forward into that new, and it will, the thing is, and this is how you'll know, Aries, it will feel right, right? It will feel it. You'll be enthusiastic, you'll want to move into it. And yeah, there might be some fears, a bit like, I don't know, I took my eldest to a play last year, and it was in a theatre in a part of town that I wasn't familiar with. So I was so excited to go and watch this play, and they were so excited, and I was excited for them. And I knew that we were going to have a good time. You know, actually getting to the place, and you know, that was a cause of anxiety for me. So it can be both, but it's that feeling of kind of, but I know that the end result, the place that I'm going to, the party, the event, I know that's for me. It's the logistics of it that perhaps is a bit off-putting to you. So yeah, it's looking good. I want to say this is intended to be a very reassuring reading, because again, like, you want to be in those places where you feel accepted, like, you know, for your quirks. You know, you want to feel like, you don't want to be in the place where you feel like the ugly duckling. You want to feel like you're in the place where you're the swan, and you're around people who are, maybe they're not swans, but they are unicorns, and you know, these other, they're as fantastic as you are in the specific unique way that you're fantastic, and they get you and they understand that, and you understand that about them, and there's this camaraderie about it. And I want to say that's really, there's a big pull there because it's right for you and you should go. Okay, go to the ball, Cinderella. Embrace a passion. Remember what came out. All right, I hope this was helpful. I know it's a longer reading. It's been a while since I've done a reading, and my guys have there's a lot of there's a lot of these little guys in my ear. Do Aries is reading, right? So yeah, that's what we have. I hope this is helpful to you. Do have a wonderful new year. Keep doing whatever you need to do to ground and connect with your own inner intuition and guidance, whatever that is for you, and you're going to have a great year. All right, take care. I will see you again soon. Bye, friends.